so thank you for being here early this morning. My name is Alex Paterson, and I lead our civics team, or civics vertical at YouTube here in Canada. If folks were at CVS last year, myself and Dave Summer, we did a session called Thinking Like a Creator. And we focused on ways in which people that work in civic spaces, in electoral bodies, in politics, in public policy, in NGOs, how they can start thinking like a creator and leveraging platforms like YouTube. And we got a lot of really great feedback on that session. One of the bits of feedback, though, was like, yeah, it's great to hear from you, but how about a creator? And so we took that away, and that's why I'm really excited that we've got the session that we have today. Before I bring up you-know-who, I'm going to say just a little bit about YouTube to sort of frame up the scale of the opportunity. I'm in a room full of fellow stat nerds, so I don't think you'll mind me throwing a few numbers your way. YouTube, according to Numeris, is the #1 streaming platform in Canada across all devices and demographics. YouTube reaches 98% of adult Canadians every month. We are the #1 most listened to podcast platform. 84% of Canadians say that YouTube helps them do research in order to make a decision. 50% of Canadians say that when something happens in the world, they go to YouTube to learn more. And for the Gen Z folks in the room who have been on this stage, 70% of Gen Z Canadians say that they would prefer to consume content from their favorite creator as opposed to studio-produced TV or film. So creators, particularly news and political and commentary creators, are on the rise. And so that's why when we were brainstorming with the CVS team of who would be best to bring here today, there was kind of one name that came to the top of the list. I know him as Stuart Reynolds, author, podcaster, creator. He has been producing satirical and comedic videos across all platforms for 13 years now. I asked him, I was like, what's the cumulative view count? And he said over 650 million views across all platforms, and I spat out my coffee because that is a wild number. Like I said, we'll call him Stuart, but we better know him as Brittlestar. Brittlestar, please.
Good morning, everyone. I had to run up the ramp because I didn't want to get here when the applause was done. I wanted to try to get applause. I just actually want to tell you, Alex, I got an email from the UCP, and they've already sent a summary of our panel, and it went great. So that's good news.
He asked me, he was like, I'm going to make a little joke. Do you want to know what it is? I was like, I do not. I do not want to know. Hi, Stuart.
Hi, Alex.
Thank you for being here. We've got about 30 minutes, and I think maybe one of the best places to start is to hear from you, from your sort of perch on the internet. Your sort of reading of the room of Canadian politics right now.
I mean, it's interesting at times. I think I said to someone outside there that, I want to live in, actually said to Dallas, her name was Dallas. What a great name Dallas is. Is Dallas here? No, don't admit it. I wouldn't admit it. Oh, the Dallas is right there. It'd be nice to live in precedented times for a little bit, wouldn't it? Canada currently to me is like a family, and the provinces and territories are like the siblings, and we've got our neighbor who keeps planting stuff and mowing more and more of our lawn, and one of the kids wants to run away from home. You're like, not now! This is not the time! So it's a very family dynamic. We love each other, we want to be together, but it comes with all those challenges.
We're both from Ontario, and it's always dicey being on. Yeah, I know. How are things looking in you live in Stratford?
Yeah.
As for you as compared to maybe here in Calgary or the rest of Canada?
Well, I find when I'm talking to people in Stratford, I don't have to worry too much. When I'm talking to people in Alberta, I watch their belt buckle for center of gravity to see which way they're going to lunge at me first. That seems to work out great. No, I think what's interesting is that there's a lot of, I think for the first time for a lot of people, not everyone by any stretch, but for the first time for a lot of people, politics is something that's come to your door, and it's actually happening to you. I think for a lot of us, white people, is that we didn't have to worry about it, and now it's there. And I think it's a good wake-up call for everyone to realize that politics matters, because it'll eventually happen to you. Politics will happen to you. We need to pay attention to it.
I think that echoes what Kathleen Wynne actually was saying at the great, amazing Walrus debate last night. You weren't there. You were fighting with Air Canada to be here.
I was enjoying the most wonderful 8-hour flight from Toronto to Calgary.
Okay, so our session today is focus on, how do you, I loved the way that Maddie framed it, which was how to make people care and click. And you, I think, have done a really wonderful job of building audiences and communities, both in short form video, but also increasingly with long form. We'll talk about that distinction in a minute. But I'm curious about your creative process. Like when something happens in the world, whether it's in the world of politics or government or I think healthcare, we talked a little bit about when something happens in the world, how do you as a creator, like what's your filtering process like for what then makes it into a piece of content that you produce?
I think the first thing that I think about is, do enough people know about this? It's very easy today in our algorithm feeds and customized choices and verticals and all that kind of stuff to think that the whole world is paying attention to the same thing we are. And it's just not true. So that's my first question is, do enough people realize what's happening? Do enough people know what's going on? And then from there, it's making sure that what I'm talking about is actually what is happening, that shared reality aspect. I have this big belief, and I think it's pretty accurate, that without shared reality, there's no comedy, and there's no commonality, there's no shared opinion, no shared perspective. So yeah, making sure that people know what we're talking about, and also making sure that I'm getting the facts straight, I guess.
If you were to sort of put a pie chart in your head of, because you talked, I think, just a little bit about all right, well, you're an entertainer, but I think you also inform through that entertainment. What's the split for you versus inform and entertain?
It's inform, entertain, and sex symbol is the three choices. Well, the sex symbol part is most of the pie. No, I think there's an obligation. I often compare myself to Oprah. Mainly because Oprah started her show in Chicago, and she would do salacious topics, and she would do sort of whatever is the wildest possible subject matter she could think of, and she built an audience doing that, and then decided, oh, I've got this huge platform, I should probably be responsible with it and do something to better the world. I want to live somewhere in between fighting nuns and teaching people to read. I like the idea of, I have this credo, which is entertain first, sell second. And I think that in a scroll culture and entertainment culture that we live in, you have to make sure that when people see your piece of content, whether it be a text post or a video post or a picture post or whatever, that they're getting something out of it immediately. Then you can sell them on your messaging after that.
You have... well, actually, over the past 20 years, so YouTube is 20 years old now. And one of the things that we have observed is that the videos that we are watching are getting both shorter and getting longer. And I think that actually kind of mirrors your creative journey as well. If you go to your Brittlestar page, there's wonderfully entertaining short form video, but also you're starting to experiment with longer form podcasts.
Yes.
How do you see your relationship with those different kinds of formats? Can you compare and contrast them? What are they for?
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is, when you say that both shorter form videos and longer form videos are both getting popular at the same time, it seems contradictory or oxymoronic, but it's not. It's like a little bit of a curve. For short-form content, for me, it's about holding up the mirror to society to get a quick emotional take on what's happening. It's like if your friend bought a hat and it was the stupidest fucking hat you've ever seen in your life. And you're like, you got to see this. That's what the short-form content's for, is to elicit an emotional response and to make people compelled to find out more and to learn more about what it is that's funny about this. The longer-form content is an opportunity to converse things out, to sort of really humanize topics and say, for example, with Politics is Broken, which I host with Lisa B., we don't always start on the same page, but we can talk it through, and at least by the end of the episode, we'll be appreciative of each other's perspectives. And long-form content is great. People crave long-form content. I think they want to have a bit of a deeper dive on the stuff they care about.
So I want to talk about the folks in the room. We have people who work in elections management bodies, with universities, with NGOs, civil society organizations, and the topics, the information, like the need to inform, is very important,
Sure.
right? And very serious and very important and very timely information. I'm curious your advice or your thoughts on, we know we need to inform, but are there ways in which folks can approach that other a little more creatively with still the same sense of responsibility and not diluting the message?
Yeah, I think that, communications in general is incredibly important, obviously. And to me, people are all in we're all in a huge swimming pool. We're all treading water. And communications are the people at the side of the pool holding up signs saying, read my sign, don't worry about trying to tread water, read my sign. And everyone in the pool is like, I'm trying not to drown, so make it quick, make it snappy. I think there's lots of aspects. One of the greatest things about the digital medium is that you can try things, and if you're wrong, you fix them, you take them down, you delete them. And I know there's the whole thing about the internet is forever. As someone who tries desperately to get everyone on the planet to watch every single thing they do, nobody's going to watch stuff unless it's really horrendous. So just don't be horrendous. That's the key.
So last night at the Walrus debate, there was a question around what is contributing most to the polarization in Canadian politics. And the 53% of the room said social media platforms. As someone who works across those platforms, I would love your take.
I think we could probably solve all of our problems if people only watched my content. That'd probably go a long way. No, I think the problem with social media isn't necessarily the technology itself or the platforms themselves, though they have responsibilities for sure. But the problem is us. The problem is, it's like an episode of one of those renovation shows where you mentioned in passing that you like ponies. You come back and your whole house is just ponies and saddles. It's much easier to sell someone something that they want than what is going to be good for them. So there's a little bit of messaging craft that can kind of go into making it better. But yeah, I think that social media is terrible, but we need to train ourselves to be less terrible because social media is us. We're the social part of social media, and we suck most of the time.
What if we just ended the panel right there and just
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great.
But I do want to actually drill down though on that idea of the responsibility that you feel as a creator. We were talking before we came on here, the idea that you don't necessarily have an editor, right? You don't have but you do have an audience, and so I'm curious if there have been times where you have been checked by your audience, and you have been you're laughing, which means
I love it because I was thinking of a specific example which I didn't mention to you.
Well, okay.
It's actually I filmed a video in Calgary here one time, and this is a good example of using your audience as an editor. I filmed a video in Calgary at a hotel, and at one of those showers where it's like a rainfall shower, and there's one for your head. then there was one down crotch level, and I was like, what's this for? What's this? Why is there such dedication and space given up for this particular area? And so I made this video where it's like I'm looking at the shower heads, and I'm like, getting ready for a shower. I'm like, I don't know what the deal is. Then it cuts to the the curtain being closed. You hear the shower running, and then me going, oh. And I immediately got a text from someone who was watching the video and said, no, take it down. Nobody wants to see their dad doing sexy things. So that's a good example of that. I mean, again, it goes back to the idea that you can try things. There's this worry, especially organizationally, there's this worry that you have to be so careful about what you're doing because if the internet's forever, again, as someone who tries to get people to watch his videos, it's okay. You can stop something and start it again. Do the best possible due diligence you can before your videos, your content. But once you've done that, if it doesn't work, rejig it, retool it.
I think that's actually very good advice for this room because I think there is an understandable pressure and you are delivering either important elections information.
Sure.
You got to nail it. You don't have, and if we're being honest, you don't have the constraints that an elections authority has.
No, I mean, a good case in point, of course, is back during the pandemic. Anyone remember the pandemic? That's interesting. Quite a few of you remember that. But Dr. Tam would do her televised, posts about what was going on in the state of things. And I love Dr. Tam. Dr. Tam's amazing. She's super smart. She's not very funny at all, though. She's pretty dry. I mean, who says bodily fluids and doesn't get a laugh? That's just weird. But at the time, I remember thinking to myself, because I didn't have those constraints, I'd be like, well, I can make, the same type I can use her messaging and I can repackage it in a manner that she would never be able to do. And I could, I could swear and I could make crass comparisons and stuff. And that's, again, goes back to me being Oprah.
But I also am hearing in you in the opportunity to, where possible, humanize something.
Yeah, I think you have to. I think that's the key. I think especially in the situation of politics and policy and that type of thing, which is all very super important, is making sure you humanize it first. And it's not just a case of just distilling it down to campaign promises, but it's how will this directly affect me? How will this actually affect me? Do I really have to pay attention to this? Again, we're all treading water in the pool. What do you want me to read? What do you want me to consume? What do you want me to take in while I'm doing that? It has to be as distilled and as clear as possible.
I think we've got we got 10 minutes left. Okay. Oh, that's very clever. You put the light behind the sign so I could see it. That was very good. So I think then I've got sort of two more questions, and then if we have time, we'll do one or two questions for Stuart from the room. I'm curious what you think is missing currently from what I will call the sort of the civic discourse space, and whether that's a format, kinds of creators, content from elected officials or government bodies. What's missing that's not there right now?
I think a few things. One is the most important thing that jumps out to me is there's sometimes a lack of accountability. In that same way that I'm not held by the same constraints as a content creator, there's also a kind of a lack of accountability. If I get something wrong, whatever, it doesn't matter. It does matter, by the way. I'm not just saying that glibly. But I mean, it's the case of accountability, that idea of in former traditional media, there used to be gatekeepers, which is a very cliched term to say, but I feel pretty good saying it in Alberta. It just feels right to say it in Alberta. And that had lots of its own problems, but there seemed to be an instilled or a built-in sense of accountability. So if you're getting information from somewhere, it felt like, well, someone's vetted this information. That's missing. That aspect is missing because there's such great distrust in news organizations and with independent news content creators, political content creators. You kind of wonder, what kind of accountability is there? What's good information? What's not good information? As I said to Rowan and Jennifer before I came in, information is information. when you're on the receiving end of it. It's up to you to determine if it's good information or bad information, and that's difficult. That's one of the big issues, and I don't know how exactly we tackle that, apart from, critical thinking and making sure people are better at that. And I think, I'm just gonna stick with accountability. I think it's a bit Wild West days still. Coming from someone who started doing this full time on social media in 2013, it was Wild West times then, and it's still Wild West now. That's another Alberta reference.
I will end with this, and then we can go to a couple questions. So if we can have mic runners and hands up, I think we'll probably have time for 2 questions. I'll end with advice. As we've said many times, there are folks in this room who are thinking about the very important things that they need to get out into the world, whether it's in advance of an election event, whether it's around a referendum, whether it's around general civic engagement in the process. Last year, we focused a lot on all right, how do you start thinking more like a creator? We have a creator here on stage. What would be your, advice on how to get started of thinking more like a creator and thinking more about the content that is produced out into the world that gets people to both click and care?
I think social media specifically is a very personality-driven format, medium. It's based on trust. It's based on those parasocial relationships where people, my accountability comes from the fact that I want you to believe the next video I'm doing. I want you to feel good about watching the next piece of content I do. A really good example of that, of course, is Zoran Mamdani did a really great job in New York.
His stuff is incredible.
It
really is.
He understood the idea that it's okay to use a little bit of humor sometimes, because humor is a pressure valve. Humor is an amazing way for people to drop their defenses a little bit, to take in information. It doesn't mean you're not taking the situation or the issue seriously, but it means that you're communicating on a human level with someone, and that's vital.
One of the things that I think Mayor Mamdani does really well is he understands that he has access to spaces that most New Yorkers don't. Right?
Yeah.
He leverages his environment in really interesting ways. And what we will say on YouTube is that, it does not matter how niche you think your corner is. There is an audience and a curious audience for it. Mm-hmm. So to really leverage your environment. Okay. We'll go to questions. Are there questions in the room? Right up here.
Great, thank you very much. Chris from University of British Columbia. One of the really striking developments of the last few weeks taking place in regards to Alberta and YouTube was what researchers called the Slopaganda campaign, in which there were all these videos made misrepresenting some of the developments here, and that didn't seem to be a really intentional attempt to change the politics, but to make money by creating really grabby content. And so I'm curious what both of you think about accountability or platform design to address those kinds of issues.
Yeah, I can say it. So on that in particular, we have policies around scams, inauthentic content. In that particular case, a lot of those channels were removed and deleted because they violated the terms of service and our community guidelines. We only can see what we see on the back end. I know the RCMP has also made some determinations around that, and I would defer to them on that. But we have community guidelines, we have terms of service, we have monetization guidelines, where the incentives are to abide by them in order to maintain a platform and maintain an audience. Stuart, you interact with our policies all the time.
Yeah, and I think that, again, that goes back to speaking to the problem with a lot of social media is the social aspect, because the Slopaganda scandal as such was a good example of, it was 4 Dutch teenagers making money off AdSense, basically, and it just playing everyone for fools. I think we need to really work on reestablishing trust and accountability with the audience being society, community in general, so that when you see something that agrees with you, you don't necessarily go, this is fantastic, I'm going to watch it all, this is amazing. You have to go, wait, why do they agree with me? Does that make sense? I'm glad they agree with me, but it's not necessarily accurate. Again, it goes back to critical thinking and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. I don't know what the best way forward is to tackle that. I feel it has to be baked into our education system so that kids are. I mean, kids now are entering a drastically different world than I was, for sure. And I could just believe something because it was printed on a newspaper. Even if it turned out to be wrong, I'd be like, well, that makes sense. That's good. But now, everyone's a newspaper, and it's more difficult to tell what's real, what's not real. Information is just information. It's up to me to determine if it's real or not.
Right over here in the front on the right.
I hope it's a good question about like my socks or something. I was worried about wearing these socks here today. I was like, are they a bit too Trudeau? I don't think so.
You would know.
Again, watch the belt buckle. That tells you which way they're going to go.
Hi.
Other than yourself, are there other creators you can suggest that everyone in the room looks at or follows that you think are really hitting the mark in the politics or democracy space?
I think there's a whole bunch of amazing political content creators from Canada currently. I think what you want to stay away from is people who are one-sided. And I say one-sided because, I mean, sometimes there's just one side, the right side of an issue. However, if that's your whole shtick, I'm not really interested in that. Like, for example, the co-host of Politics is Broken, Lisa B., does a lot of work on TikTok, does stuff on YouTube, and she is great. She will do her homework. She knows what she's talking about before she gets into it, and she swears a lot, and she's very entertaining, and I would suggest everyone follow Lisa. And then she'll be glad that I said that, because she's in Edmonton right now, and she's so jealous she's not here.
I actually think we have time for one more, if there's one more. And if not, we can leave with the thing that we should do at the end of like any like late night interviews where you get to plug stuff.
I get to what stuff?
You get to plug. You get to plug
I
stuff.
get to plug stuff. I
Yeah.
think you said plunk stuff. This is a Gen Z reference I don't understand.
I'm not.
You've
that
been
cool.
plunking? I'm plunk maxing. Yeah, for sure. So feel free to follow Politics is Broken, the podcast on YouTube and other podcasting platforms. And you can find me at Brittlestar anywhere. If you have any song requests right now, this would be a great time to do that. But otherwise, thank you so much for your attention and the time this morning.
Thanks very much, everyone. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.